The great Canadian escape is here and people are done, they're fed up, they had enough and they want out of Canada. And it's not just Canada, this is also happening in the UK, where you're seeing an unbelievable amount of millionaires that are trying to flee the country and are fleeing the country to places like Dubai and places like Italy. The thing is, countries like Canada are collapsing and they are the blueprint model for the dystopian future of the West, because when you look around and even go and visit places like the United States and look at the cities in comparison to cities in Asia or even developing countries in Latin America, you begin to quickly realize that these countries are collapsing and they are being destroyed, and it all comes down to the corruption. There is a massive cost that people have to pay in terms of their taxes, in terms of their cost of living, for the insane rampant corruption that goes on in the West. And the thing is, greed, it just gets worse and worse as time goes on. And the reason why I left Canada was because I saw that if I didn't leave Canada, my standard of living was going to start going down as well. I was going to be one of the people that was going to be forced to accept a lower standard of living. And I just said, no, I'm not doing this. So I said, no, I'm out, and I left last year. And I would encourage people to do the exact same thing. I mean, there are some very low bar residency programs that you can get with insane tax advantages. Paraguay is one that I think is insanely unloved by people, but Paraguay has the lowest tax rate in the whole of Latin America. It doesn't tax foreign income, so if you don't live in Paraguay and you're just a digital nomad, then you won't be paying any tax at all. But if you are living in Paraguay, you could be paying as little as 10% or less, which is absolutely crazy. So there are some serious places that you can go to. You can lower your cost of living substantially. You can be in a culture and society that just seems like, you know, Canada and the United States probably was 50, 60 years ago, where people actually care for each other. People aren't on their phones all the time. People aren't just going through this entire brain rot type scenario. I mean, AI short content is just destroying young people's minds in the West, but here, not so much a big deal. Most people who leave these countries like Canada and the UK, they realize pretty quickly one thing, is that it doesn't matter who is voted in, nothing is gonna change. The government itself is the problem. It doesn't matter if you just change the front, the face of it, which is those politicians. And those politicians are insanely corrupt. It doesn't matter if you vote in your party or somebody else's, but the corruption will still continue and it will still remain. And that is the main problem and where the cost is. I mean, when you saw the election that happened in Canada, where were the big promises? I mean, there really was no big promises. Oh, we're going to save you $800 a year. We might save you $1,200 a year. Give me a break. Like, that is ridiculous. For most Canadians earning the median wage, they're going to be paying 30 to 40% tax. And then after that, they're going to go and pay all the consumption taxes that they have to pay. And you know, the government only allows them to save and invest a certain amount tax-free every year. You're even limited with that. Basically, people are just insanely overtaxed in Canada and they don't even realize it. And in the UK, it's even worse. Like, in the UK, the tax rates are slightly lower, but then when you add in the national insurance, which is for the free healthcare, which isn't very free and is also just very poor and bad, and you have to wait months and months for MRIs. It's the same situation in Canada. I saw recently that the surge in the amount of people going from Ontario to New York to clinics to get MRIs is through the roof. And these aren't cheap. They're $2,000-$3,000. So if you think about how much that really is for the average Canadian earning a median wage, it's just absolutely insane. And people are paying insane amounts of taxes for these services that they don't get. And guys, I'm not against taxes. If you're getting those services and those services are actually fairly decent, then yeah, taxes work great. But when you have a government that is as corrupt as these governments like the UK, Canada, the US, because they're working with such large numbers that they can just give contracts out to their buddies or corporations that they own indirectly through family members, profiteering off defense contracts which are handed out because they knew before. I mean, it's just ridiculous. And you know, I am a capitalist at heart, but even I can see when you look through history and look at how equality in terms of what people earn has just gone way out of whack, you have to say, well, how on earth do you reverse that? And I don't have any great solution. I think it's just an advancing society, and unfortunately every type of society, whether it's communism or capitalism, they have their advantages and disadvantages, and the big one with capitalism is greed, because you have seen CEO pay that has skyrocketed, and that's when people's living standards really started to go down, because people don't have a share in the prosperity that's generated anymore. And I don't think it's up to the government to come in and force that with socialist ideologies, because I don't think that that will make things better. I think the problem is actually the government to begin with. The government has become too large. And when you start to travel around the world, you start to realize that you don't need this insanely massive government in your life anymore. And you can have way more freedom living in a place where the government is way, way smaller than it is in places like Canada and the UK. And that's really the thing. People have got to wake up, and many people are. I hear from people all the time who are leaving and they're just fucking done with it. They are really sick and tired of the bullshit. And like I said, they've realized it doesn't matter who gets voted in. Moving to Alberta is not going to save you. Moving to Ireland from the UK is not going to fucking save you. These are very similar places, and most of the time they're governed in exactly the same sort of way. So people look for these places that are really close and they think that they're going to be the answer, but they're not. And you know, I lived in the UK and I moved to Canada for a better life. And the standard of living in Canada when I moved there was definitely better than the UK. But now they are both declining and they're both going downhill at a rapid rate. And you know, moving to either of them or moving between them, I really don't think you're getting a big enough bump up in your living standards for it to be worth moving to the UK or moving to Canada from the UK. I mean, it's just kind of crazy. I just think that these Western countries, it's so obvious that they are collapsing, and more people are waking up and they know that this is going on and they want to get out the door. I meet more Canadian entrepreneurs outside of Canada than I did within Canada. That's because people have realized that it's impossible to create a small business in Canada, and it's way better to be on the other side of that. And Canada has really got to change, and it's just not going to do that. It's so obvious. But Canada would have to change, market itself a place that you can set up your business and you're going to be taxed way less than the United States. They need to get down their taxes substantially to compete with the United States, because economically speaking, they can't compete. But in terms of resource revenues, which they could raise for taxes and lowering tax rates, oh yeah, they could definitely compete and they could definitely become a place where businesses want to set up. But the reality is that's never gonna happen, and you and me, we both know that that ain't gonna happen. But you know, people are just sick and tired, they're fed up, and they want out. If you've enjoyed this video, I'd highly recommend that you check out this video here. I will see you in the next one.